Sorry.
Trust me, young Master Turner. It's not getting to the land of the dead that's the problem. It's getting back.
Hello everyone, my name is Abdul Rahman and welcome back to another tutorial on music production. Now this is the promised tutorial that I've recently released a teaser about it. It's for the movie Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End. This movie has the most beloved score in Hans Zimmer's career. And I loved the love theme so much, so I decided to make it. But as you can see in this tutorial, I will only talk about this part of the theme. Like the love theme have two parts. So let's say we have part A and part B in the original. In this, I will only talk about part A. And the one that I showed in the video at the start of this tutorial. It's pretty simple. It's pretty easy. Everything was done by ear. There is no music sheets. I couldn't find music sheets, unfortunately. So let's dive in. And I am using FL Studio as my primary DAW or DAW, whichever suits you. And yeah, so we have the entire string section is playing except for the harp. We have the brass section is playing. We have choirs. We have some good percussions. We have we even use the piano as part of the percussion section. It's a good combination. And we have some woodwinds playing along as well. So the entire track is in D minor. So for the start, we have this D minor run that is done by the string section. So how did I approach this part? So first I started with the cellos or the cello. So I started with these cello section. It's only D minor. Okay, so I started from here. And I repeated twice, and I stopped here, all right? And then the violas will take over, and then we have the violas, they will take over. So if we switch to the violas, so if we go to the violas, they will take over from here. So this part here, it is crossed. This is a crossed part between the cello and the violas. So if we go back to the cello, we will notice that they are playing at the same part here. So these notes are crossed between the cello and the violas, some sort of like a crossfade effect between the two sections, in order, in order to have that, in order to have that, sweeping effect. So everything, the note, everything is moving from the right ear to the left ear to the violins. That's why we want to have this crossfade effect, and then the violas will go go up here, and this part will be cross-faded with the second violins. So we go to the violin section. This part of the violas is cross-faded with the second violins, and the second violins will continue up until they start playing the main melody over here. As for this part only, it will be crossfade between the second violins and the first violin over here, and that's it. So if you listen to the original track, which is called At Wit's End, you will hear the same effect, that the strings are doing this crossfade effect. You will first hear the cellos starts to play from the right, okay, and then they move on with the run until they reach the first violins. So this is a pretty awesome effect, and it's easy, to recreate it with sample instruments. And this is the main melody that is going on. So it's only some sort of loop. It's only repeating itself. It's nothing hard about it. Okay. If you want to see my MIDI data, that's no problem. So we have, as for the tempo, at the start, we have the tempo set over here at 120, and then once it reaches here, it reaches, I believe, 60, 57, okay. So everything starts, everything starts fast to be able to do, successful runs, and then once we start with this emotional or epic, majestic part, we take it slow at 57 tempo beats per minute. So, and this is the violins, and if you want to see the MIDI data, that's no problem. We have the violins 1 vibrato. All right. We have this is the violins 1 dynamics, because we want to have this sweeping effect, like like that. All right. The exact same thing goes is copy paste to the second violins. All right. So only the violins are playing this melody, and they are being doubled by the flutes. They're playing along in a legato. And sorry for not mentioning, for the violins, or for the entire string section, actually, I am using Spitfire symphonic strings. This library is absolutely beautiful. As you know, it has a rich, lush, detailed sound, which I like. Especially the violins, they sound, awesomely emotional. And for the woodwinds, I'm using also Spitfire symphonic woodwinds, and I'm using the flutes legato patch over here. It's the same thing. All right. And this is for the main melody part. The violins are playing it, and they are being doubled by the flutes. Now, moving on to the violas. For the violas, they only keep playing this part repeatedly. I mean, the notes are not changing, like literally. They are only playing this part. Okay? So if I want to isolate the violas, I just want let you listen to the violas alone. Okay? So yeah. So that's it. The entire track, the violas are only playing this over and over again. when I switch them off, it really makes a difference. They have their own impact. They have their own emotional touch to the track. So the violas are really making a difference to the emotions going on in the score. All right, so this is for the violas. As for the next string instrument, we have the cello. The cello are playing the chords. So here first, they're playing, D and double octaves, and then they're playing D with A sharp, and then D with A, C, G, E, and A, and they keep repeating over here the same thing. The same chords are, just copy paste over here. This is for the cellos, and if you want to take a look at the the MIDI data, that's no problem. This is the dynamics. All right, and this is the vibrato. When I want my this is another thing that I want to mention. When I want my my basses or my cello or even violas, if they are playing along with the cello, if they are playing chords, I would like to keep everything at mid vibrato, in the middle, like 50% only, because too much vibrato, it will become annoying, and I don't think that I will need that much of a vibrato or emotion in the chords. So yeah, sure, if you want to dial up the vibrato of the violins to the maximum, sure, if you wanted it to have that emotional impact. But for the chords, they don't need to. Even the listener, they will not notice the vibrato, the intensity of this section, because everything will be mixed together, everything will be blend together, so it's hard to tell. Not like the violins case, in which they are playing the main melody, so we want them to be piercing, we want them to be in front, we want them to be hearable. That's why we put a lot of effort in programming the notes and programming the vibrato, the expression, the dynamics, and whatsoever. But if you're playing only chords, there's no need to use maximum vibrato, so I just leave it at 50%. That'll get the job done. The same goes for the basses. If we go to the double basses over here, the same thing exactly, right? But the basses, of course, they are not they're not playing divisi, not like the cello, playing D sharp, A, C, A. They're only playing the bass notes. All right, now we're finished with the string section, and like I said before we move on to the brass, I am using Spitfire symphonic string. Actually, I'm using, for the entire track, I'm using the Spitfire Symphony Orchestra, the entire collection, which includes the string section, the woodwind section, the brass section, and the percussion section, which is not part of the symphony orchestra, but it was a package that was released before these sections, which is called Percussion Redux or something like that. It's a pretty good collection, and I would recommend getting it as well. For the brass section, this is where all the epicness is going. We have horns, trumpets, and so horns, trumpets, and trombones, all of them are playing the same notes. The horns and the trombones are the horns and the trumpets, sorry, are playing in unison. So the trumpets are doubling the horns. As for the trombones, they are doubling the horns as well, but an octave lower, in order to provide that thick sound. At first, I doubled the horns with trombones in unison, but that didn't work so much for me, so I kept hearing the original track, and then I figured that the trombones are actually playing an octave lower. That's why we have, we feel like that the horns are having a thicker sound, more aggressive, more epic sound. So that does really make a lot of difference. And this is for the horns. These are the notes for the horns. Actually, they are pretty simple. And please make sure to to at least treat the sample library as if there's a real player playing it. So try to respect that. That's why I have gaps here between the notes, to feel like that the player or the horn section is actually breathing between these notes. So this is very important and very critical, especially in breathing instruments like the brass, instruments which requires breathing, like brass and woodwind. Unlike the strings have connected notes if they're playing legato, but for the horns, no, they need to take at certain point, they need to take like a breath before moving on to the next note. All right, and especially in this case, because the horns, if you go back to the video that I played that you played at the start of this tutorial, you will notice that there's this sweeping like curve effect, like the horns are playing from the lowest to the hardest point, to the brightest point, and then they take like a sudden breath here before moving on to the next note, which will result in a like a strong attack on this note. So I will show you the dynamics. Okay, so this is what's going on. So you have this sweep or curve effect, which allows the player he's breathing gradually. So the dynamic is moving upward gradually, and then once we reach these two notes, we have this strong attack, like he's exhale the notes. And notice that I am using a mix of articulations. So I'm actually playing with the legato, because the legato have a brighter sound than the long notes. That's why I've decided to use legato, which sounds way much better. And for this, I'm using the short notes over here. We have marcato, we have staccato, but this one felt like it's neither too long like a marcato or too short like a staccato. It just feels right in the middle. So I've used this in a combination with legato. And then and that's it. And you just keep changing notes and keep replicating the same technique or idea of the curves. This is for the horns. And exactly the same thing is copy and paste to the trumpets as well. As for the trumpets. Now for the trumpets, they are playing, I'm not using the legato, I'm using this patch. This patch gives the trumpets a really harsh, bright, thick sound, which is what I'm looking for, or which was worked best for my case. That's why I used this patch, which is pretty awesome. And in a combination with as well the same short notes that I've used on horns. Okay, they are playing with doubling the horns. As for the trombones, I'm not using a mixture of articulations. I'm only using one, which is the same one I use on trumpets. This patch gives the trombones, a harsh, a bright sound, which is exactly what I'm looking for, especially when they are playing in a lower register. They sound like epic over at their register. So they are doubling the horns as well, but an octave lower. This is for the brass section. And the last thing is the bass trombone and tuba over here. They are playing the chords, so we have the bass trombones over here, and we have the tuba over here. And I'm using the long patches. You don't need to use legato. When your instruments are playing chords, not main melody, so the listener won't give much attention to the notes. And it's lighter even in the CPU not to use a legato patch, so it's better to use a long patch. So you don't even need to use the vibrato as well. So this is for the tuba. Now we're finished with the brass section, and we can go to the next, in a traditional order, or whatever. So we can just go to, let's see over here. Let's go to the woodwinds. Yeah, since we talked about the flutes before, for the flutes, we said that they are doubling the violins. There's nothing special about them. Okay. And I'm using the legato patch. And yeah. And I also have the low woods, which I believe these are bassoons playing. Okay, we have the low woods. They are playing the chords. Okay. All right. And this is for the woodwind section. And for the choir over here, we have women and men choir. For these libraries, I'm using Orchestral Tools Metropolis Arc. They have a fantastic choir library, which I use them all the time. So I'm using the sustain patch, which is pretty obvious from here. These are the women's. These are the women over here. Okay, and notice that I give them time to breathe as well. I need to respect the human being. We need time to breathe. That's why I leave some spaces or gaps between the notes. So yeah, this is the women section, and I just copy paste it for the men section. And if you want to take a look at the dynamics over here, same thing. We want to have this sweeping effect, right? This is for the choir, yeah. And the last thing is the percussion section. What do we have? We have the timpani. At the start, we have timpani rolls, crescendo over here. And then we just have timpani hits, which are playing along with the melody in order to have that strong or accented attack of the brass. It really helps the brass, to have the strong attack at the beginning of each of their notes. This is for the timpani. And we have the piano as well, which is acting as a percussion instrument. Also, the piano is playing these chords in order to thicken the chords, or it helps to gives like a strong attack for the brass section as well. Like I said, a majestic feel, an epic feel. This is what we are going for, especially in this track. It suits very well for the scene. Okay, this is for the piano. And what else do we have here? Yeah, we have the piety over here. Yeah, okay. And yeah, so if we continue with the tracks, we will see that the track will reach its end over here. So yeah, we use the snare drum as well. Okay, so once we reach this part, which is this, so at this part exactly here, we have like these fast short notes that are playing. The horns are taking the melody over here. So where is the horns? We have the horns. So this is what they are playing. They are playing it in legato over here. Okay. And the horns are being doubled by the trumpets and by the trombones as well. This effect helps to give like an intense mood, like something is about to happen, so it's a heart pumping moment. And for the violas, they are also doubling the horns. For the violas, they are also doubling the horns. And for the violins, they are just, for the first violin, it's a combination. For the first violin, they're just playing a sustain, a D. As for the second violin, they are playing this. So let me solo the second violin so you can hear what they are playing. And for the violas, let's go to the violas, which are playing the same notes of a horn section. And for the horns, okay. And what else do we have? We have the choir. As for the choir, they are only playing A and D. The same thing go for women and men, like a crescendo over here. Right, crescendo. All the string, all the instruments here are playing a crescendo until they reach the climax. So, or the end of this part. And as for the timpani, they are only playing rolls. For the timpani, they are only playing rolls over here. Okay. In order to provide that, menacing sound to the track. And we have the basses. Playing D. And for the flutes, they are doubling the violins. The flutes are doubling the violins, but we have them play in a staccato. The flutes, they are playing in short notes, not legato. All right. And I guess that's pretty much it. And we have the low woods, which are playing a D as well. Everything is in D. All the other sections are playing in D. And we have the snare drum. All right. At the end of the track, the snare drum is used to mark the finish of the track. And yeah, that's pretty much it. There's nothing special about it, or nothing hard. It's all about taking your time to listen to the individual instruments and how they are all working together. I'm not saying that I've made a 100% successful mock-up, but this is the closest thing I can get to the original track. I wasn't able to find any sheets online, so you can say that this is the closest orchestral arrangement that I was able to pull off, and I think it's pretty good. It sounds pretty good. So for the second part that you heard when Davy Jones is playing the organ, I don't think that we need a tutorial on that, because it's simple. I've only made it to show off the libraries that I've used for this part, which are completely free. That's why I want to talk about this. They are completely free. I'm using this is for the organ. It's free. It's from Sample Phonics, the Leeds Town Hall organ. All right, you can download it from their website, And for the music box, I was able to find one from here, from Sonic Couture, which is also free, and you can use, it's compatible with Contact. All right. So yeah, they are both free. You can use them. They have, they have a pretty good recording sound. Yeah, this is the only thing I have for now. And yeah, as for the reverb, please check my previous tutorials. I've talked about the reverb settings that I've used. It's pretty, it's pretty easy and straightforward. There's nothing hard about it. So just check it out, and you should know that I'm the same reverb settings that I showed in the tutorial. I'm using it here right now for this track exactly, and you can hear that it's full and rich, and it sounds like it sounds good, like it's being recorded live by real players. So you should definitely check my tutorial on how to set up an orchestral reverb. Until then, see you. Bye.